How does I love my lips start? I'm blanking on that.
What?
Oh, man.
Like,
that's okay.
the start of the song?
The
or
song!
like
You know, I
the
love
very
my lips.
beginning?
Yeah.
This is Silly Songs with Larry.
No, 10 days after I turned 8. Got my lip stuck in a
Got my lip stuck in a gate.
I'm sorry, that's
my
a complete
friends all
detour.
laugh.
Don't worry. Editor
just
Dolan
stood there
will
until the
fix
fire department called
all of
and
this. He's
I did
great.
the locks with a crowbar. My friend named Oscar who got stung by a bee. Can you tell I have kids?
Yes.
Editor Dolan covers a multitude
I know that,
of sins.
but I don't know Backrooms.
VeggieTales is a rite of passage for all children, I feel. Like
I
mildly
mildly seduced my wife by quoting VeggieTales to her.
See, it even builds real life skills. Exactly.
That's a clip.
When we first met, she was like, "Oh, who is this guy?" And then I quoted, I think it was the Rapscallions. It was like, "I don't have a name. I've been around since show 1, and I still don't have a name."
And she was like, "That's the man I'm gonna marry." That's how she knew.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Game Boys podcast. I am joined by my lovely co-host, Dolan.
Hello.
And Christian.
Heyo.
But we are on a special episode today because we actually have a co-guest. Say hello, Jay.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
So Jay is going to actually be hosting this one with a topic that she wants to go ahead and talk to everybody and us about. Why don't you go ahead and let us know what you want to talk about, Jay, and go right into it.
So today we are actually going to be talking about the Backrooms. So does anybody, just to start off, like know what the Backrooms is or ever heard of it before?
What's the Backrooms, Jay?
I genuinely have no idea.
Christian doesn't know, which is going to make this so much more fun.
I'm lost.
I have vague knowledge of the Backrooms from just my constant terminal illness on YouTube, where they just graced my presence with starting with that found footage video that I think everybody knows is the start of it.
Yeah.
Or at least for people who are aware of the Backrooms. But I have found it fascinating and enjoy watching people play Backrooms games. That's my limited exposure.
Christian owns chickens instead.
Indeed.
So,
yeah,
the Backrooms, I think, is kind of more of like a niche topic, or at least it's I don't say like it's becoming a lot more like mainstream, I guess, now with like the film that's coming out, the A24 film of the Backrooms, which is kind of inspiring like why we're talking about it today. But to kind of explain like the history of it, we kind of got to go way back when. So
wait,
following up,
we have an age range of way back when. I'd like to know what you consider way back when, Jay.
Like probably between like 2011.
Oh! That's way back when, huh?
That's way back
That's
when.
fine. That's fine. The gray hairs are beautiful on me. Keep going.
So, basically we're going back to like 4chan days. Do you guys know what 4chan is? Or like have you heard of it before?
I know what 4chan is.
Fortune?
No, Christian, no, you sweet summer child.
Like...
It's like, what is that? I only heard that in like memes.
4chan?
4chan.
Chan.
Like, you know, like the Japanese honorific, like, kinda.
I have
don't
heard
speak
of
Japanese.
4chan. I have never delved into 4chan.
Alright, so neither have I.
Can we go back to English, please?
Yes, we can. We can go back to English. So,
Okay, thank you.
basically, like 4chan, like is kind of like Reddit. You can think of it. It's basically like an image board.
Doesn't
So
know what
essentially,
Reddit
like-
is.
Wait,
Oh,
Red
wow.
it?
This might be a lot
that
more
like
challenging than I thought it was
Diglett?
gonna be.
I know what Reddit is.
Okay. Okay, so essentially it's like Reddit. It definitely had like different boards, like for different topics, where people could post like their interests. The thing about it that made it different was that every user was anonymous, essentially by default. There were some exceptions there, but you basically could kind of say whatever you wanted to say, and there was really kind of no consequences on it for the most part. And that is where our fun little friend, the Backrooms, kind of came in. So essentially, in introducing that, there was another part of it called creepypastas. Do you guys know what creepypastas are? I'm sure you have.
Oh yeah, I love this.
The famous "Been Drowned" is, a classic. No? Oh man.
Ben who?
Ben Drowned, yeah, I've heard of Ben Drowned.
You know what
So,
a creepypasta is, right?
It's like at Halloween when you get the noodles that are shaped like
Okay,
bats,
you were just
right?
screwing
Oh
with
no.
Oh my god.
I don't know what creepypastas are, but that was the first
You
thing.
never
No,
heard of,
you
like,
don't know what a
Smile
creepypasta-
Dog or Momo or like
He
the
is
old school
so
stuff.
offline. How did I talk you
Momo?
into
Yeah.
this?
Like
Wow.
Avatar
boy.
Aang.
What?
No,
Not
no,
Momo.
Definitely more horrifying.
Like he has Momo, right?
Oh man.
Man.
That's the
This is
only
gonna be
Momo I
fun.
know of.
Educate him.
Okay. So
I'm sorry, guys.
it's okay. It's okay. It's rare nowadays not to be chronically online, so that's a good thing. So essentially, creepypastas basically first showed up on 4chan, so again, as an online image board around 2007. It's actually a variation of the slang copy and paste, which basically is like a block of text that became viral and was basically copied and pasted around everywhere. If you've ever seen like in Discord or if you've been on Discord long enough, they have popped up and it's basically like a bunch of random text and like a bunch of emojis like periodically dispersed between the text. But within this, they started basically kind of writing about different things, like what they were talking about, like Slender Man. That was like one of the main ones that kind of popped up within creepypasta. There was like Jeff the Killer, there was Ben Drowned, they
I
brought up
watched
Smile
Christian
Dog.
just light up. He's like, I think I know, Slender Man.
Like that one rings a bell. That one rings a bell.
That's so
And that, so like, wait, did you guys ever hear about like the Slender Man stabbing that happened? Like, the
Yes.
Slender Man?
No, that was real life.
Yes, I did hear
Yeah, I
about
know.
that.
Yeah.
Like, so a lot of that came from like, again, just being chronically online. A lot of like these kids were trying to prove essentially like Slender Man was real, and they wanted to like bring it into the real world.
Don't
So yeah,
leave your 12-year-old or 14-year-old with unlimited internet access unsupervised, please.
exactly. It was like Blair Witch, but in real life.
Oh.
So from there, on one of the posts, essentially, there was a picture that kind of came up. So it was between 2011 and 2018. Dallin, editor, please insert a photo of Backrooms.
Okay, yeah.
It's basically like a photograph of like this large, carpeted room with a bunch of fluorescent lighting, this pale yellow, dividing walls. That was, and then like basically people were like, oh, this is kind of, odd and strange and not so friendly. So they did kind of, someone like anonymously wrote like on this caption, which became like the famous kind of like description of it. So it says, if you're not careful and clip out of reality in the wrong areas, you'll end up in the backrooms, where it's nothing but the stink of old, moist carpet, the madness of mono yellow, the endless background noise of fluorescent lights at maximum hum buzz, and approximately 600 million square miles of randomly segmented empty rooms to be trapped in. God save you if you hear something wandering around nearby, because it sure as hell has heard you.
Okay.
That was the famous caption of the Backrooms.
Can I tell you something as you're talking about the hell of fluorescent yellow? A little bit of inside baseball here. So, to have our talking heads in the background, you have like a green screen type thing, but my little face has a green scarf, which messes with that. So, to fix it, I have it against, it's a little hard to see.
Wow!
A horrific fluorescent yellow, so I'm just staring into that the entire time we're talking. This horrific
Straight
fluorescent.
into the void. Just into the void.
So I'm looking into the back rooms as we're talking about this, basically. I just want you to know.
Existential dread. It's just buzzing.
I'm a little scared right now, if I'm being honest, yeah.
This is what this is all about, Dallin. This is just to go ahead and provide an intervention for your very
I need a few.
background.
We'll be here a while.
Oh, man.
So all that to say that this actually was based off a real room. To segue off of Dallin's fluorescent yellow background. So it actually did end up being like a real furniture store, somewhere like around Wisconsin. So they were basically doing like renovations within this store, and they basically found like fake inner walls. They found a bunch of partitions, and like some guy just posted it. The owner, I guess, who was actually renovating this store, posted it, on this 4chan kind of thread, and it kind of just took off from there. And then like a bunch of people later on really didn't know like what the source of it was until they used like Twitter and the Wayback Machine and a bunch of people on Discord to find like the actual like origin story of like the Backrooms. So
that kind of brings up a question for me real quick. Is there any information on if like this whole Backrooms popularity affected the business who posted this picture about their location to begin with? Did they ever get any additional traffic because of that? Or is that unknown?
So I believe the store is actually closed right now. So I don't actually believe, that it actually did generate any traffic. I think the guy who was trying to make the store was trying to re-renovate it, basically into like a car racing place. But as far as I know, it's closed from what I saw.
Gotcha.
Which would have been super cool, like if they had like made like a museum. I feel like nowadays, like especially with like Meow Wolf. I don't know if you guys ever been to Meow Wolf, like that museum kind of sci-fi thing. You never heard of it? Oh, it's nope. I don't know if it's maybe it's.
I'm not the only one that hasn't heard of something.
I think maybe it's like more of a West Coast thing, because like there's a bunch around Texas, like more on the west. I guess it's more West Coast. It's like New Mexico, Las Vegas, California. So I guess it is more West Coast from the places I've heard. But it's very similar to, I guess, what a museum I would think would be cool, like for the Backrooms, more of like a interactive kind of space. But we digress. Anyways, basically after going into the backroom, I need Dallin to cut this part out. I'm like rambling a little bit. So that's the background of the Backrooms. Now going into, like I said, the creepypasta, it kind of blew up, essentially, on the forum. So a bunch of people started writing, a bunch of fanfic, like I said, kind of adding on to their own concepts, started writing wikis, adding on to like different levels of the like original Backrooms and like the different kind of things that you would find in them. But a really big thing, I think, that like really impacted the community, I really think has been has really kind of catalyzed the movie kind of coming out, was like the short film anthology. So there was this guy, his name was Kane Pixels. So in January 2022, he essentially released on YouTube this footage called the Backrooms Found Footage. He was 16 at the time, and it was under the username Kane Pixels. So it was essentially like this VHS tape kind of filming that was shown of like the early 1990s and early 2000s. It was like a poorly remembered recollection of like the experiments and things that had been happening at that point in time, throughout the exploration of like what exactly the Backrooms was. And he really did an amazing job kind of world building within the Backrooms. So he did create like this fake company that essentially was doing experimentation to kind of help with the housing crisis over the overpopulation of the planet. So they were basically trying to find like places for like people to live because they didn't have the resources on planet Earth. And it was just kind of archiving like the different struggles they went through, and essentially like how they found these rooms where you could basically no clip. So like the first film shows like this kid who's like filming with his friends, and he no clips into the back room, and he like records like his time there, and he encounters like this kind of bacteria monster. It's like this long spindly thing. Editor Dallin, please put in a picture of the bacteria monster, kind of like tracing him essentially. And then from what it seems, it does seem like it does get him, and then his camera no clips back into reality, but it no clips into a place that he wasn't in before. So it kind of introduced this whole kind of concept of like alternate reality. and you can see that just through on later on in the anthology series, where like one of the guys is trying to talk to some other guy, and they're having this conversation like in the same room, but they can't see each other, and like there's no way for him to escape, and essentially like the guy tries to help him, but he ends up, from what it seems, getting attacked or even no clipping himself back into the backrooms. So it's a really, really cool concept. And then from there, it kind of like took off, again, like I said, into like video games. So we did see a lot more development within the video game realm as far as like the Backrooms. So there's like a co-op multiplayer called Escape the Backrooms that Fancy Games came out with. It was praised for its depiction of the extended lore. And then you had Backrooms 1998, which was a psychological survivor horror game that was a one-person developer from Skill Roll Studio. And it was also, again, on like found footage visuals and limited save system. And then in 2025, Dreamcore did come out with like a psychological horror video game developed by Argentinian studio Montreluz, which I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but it did take inspiration from the Backrooms. So what are your thoughts so far on everything that I have kind of said?
Yeah, so I'll get started. I do remember kind of like the birth of the backroom stuff, especially with the found footage when that initially came out. I don't remember like exactly all that went on in the videos vividly, but I do remember at least the first one in that getting caught by the entity, camera falling back into reality type of thing, and I thought, well, that's kind of fascinating. And then I watched a couple more and then kind of forgot about it until those games came out. The thing I find very fun about like the original backroom stuff is like, since they're kind of going off of the angle of like found footage, all the cameras look like they're like really ancient cameras, CCTV footage, which adds a nice little fun filter effect for that kind of I guess kind of horror genre, which is very fun as opposed to just crystal clear footage.
I think it also like allows a certain like ambiguity like to develop within the story, because like a lot of it is kind of like what's reliable, what's not. Are you really sure that you're seeing what you think you're seeing, or is it maybe something else? And like the fact that it's not like a straightforward narrative, I think also provides just a lot of room, and a lot of people like that because they could build like lore on their own, you know, in their own different ways, and really just build on like the different rooms that were shown within the anthology, where you really weren't sure, like, hey, is this part of reality? Like, what exactly is the Backrooms? Is this kind of just like a sci-fi thing? Like, they ripped, you know, like a hole in space, essentially, and it's like an alternate version, or like, what exactly is going on? And I think that's like the really cool appeal about it, nowadays, at least. Okay, so, continuing on, what do you guys know about liminal space? Or, like, what do you think liminal space is?
I mean, isn't it where there's something that's like, it's a little amorphous, but you know, it's roughly mundane, very empty, kind of foreboding, would be a very loose descriptor I would use.
So I would agree with you. So essentially it is supposed to be like these empty spaces where like you would expect people to be. So like a lot of the times you'll see like on YouTube it'll be like hallways, and it's just like there's nobody there, or even like office spaces. You would see that also like in the anthology. Office spaces that were empty, and it would just lead into more office spaces, and there was really nobody there. You would hear music kind of playing, and there was really nobody there either, except for like these monsters that would come out and attack you periodically. But I think it really did kind of, again, push forward this idea that we weren't seeing really kind of within pop culture, I think, until really these anthologies came out, and like within recent years about like what exactly is liminal space, what's kind of the attraction to it, and like why do we kind of continue to like push this concept, like even just through our media, like on YouTube or like on Twitter, or Discord, just kind of like this constant like chugging out of like liminal space content. So how do you feel about it? Like when you see it, like what does it make you feel?
Well, I wanted to ask for one clarification. This is distinct from like, even though it's human adjacent, obviously, this is distinct from like ruins. Like if you go to a Mayan temple, that's not a liminal space, right?
So it's essentially, yeah, I wouldn't say so. I guess a lot of the liminal spaces that we see are a lot more modern.
Yeah.
Rather than, I guess, ancient times.
Mm-hmm.
So like there are like certain sects though, that have developed, the thing that I was looking at was like urban spacing, so like the way that it's called urban exploration or urbix, which is essentially just kind of like popular local or international sites like abandoned malls, decaying hospital buildings, long abandoned subway tunnels. So in a sense, a ruin, but not as ancient. You can think of it like that.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Okay.
Nice.
Yeah, a key thing that I'm finding from just like looking up the definition is they're commonly places of like transition, which is where like the hallways or like airports or places where you expect people to get from one place to another being eerily empty as a key component to defining the liminal space.
I feel like in my personal life, the place I've experienced this the most is like really late at a hotel. I don't know how else to explain it. It's like, yeah, like long halls, lots of rooms, no activity or very little activity is probably the closest in real life where I have felt like I experienced what these stories are trying to evoke. So yeah. I think it's a fun... This is very different, but like I think it's a fun thing. I'm quite fond of certain types of horror and not other types of horror, and I do think creeping dread is a very enjoyable type of horror, and I think you definitely get that. I'd say, in terms of narrative, one of the problems you have with it that I foresee coming, that I'm sure you'll bring up later, is that you run into the issue of all build up and no payoff, which isn't very satisfying as a viewer, or you have a payoff and then you're kind of betraying the concept itself. If there's a giant spider monster crawling around the back rooms and you see it, now you're in a monster flick. You're not really in a liminal space of the back rooms anymore. So I could foresee that kind of adding difficulty when you want any kind of narrative longer than a creepypasta, like a 1 or 2 paragraph thing. So I'm actually curious, I know you're going to get into that later, but I'm curious how the movie is going to handle that when you're trying to have these things that have always, up till this point that we've talked about, been kind of more bite-sized and kind of not tied to a larger narrative. I'm not sure if you put me in charge of that project, how I would solve that issue.
And I think that really brings up like a good point. So we can go into like the movie company. So the movie company that's actually making this one, along with actually Kane Parsons, so they did put him, this is like his first like big debut as far as like his project goes. So A24 is basically like a prominent company in entertainment. It was founded in 2012. It's been really synonymous with like high quality amateur driven cinema and like elevated horror. So a lot of that times you'll see in like a Midsummer. Some of you guys are familiar with like that film, or like The Witch, or like Moonlight, or everything. Yeah, The Witch, The Lich. What is it, like from Adventure Time? Everything, Everywhere All at Once. So they really do like a really good job, I think, of like creating this psychological disturbance, but at the same time to making it like beautifully shot, emotionally deep, intellectually engaging, and like kind of bring a lot of questions, like especially like with Midsummer. I mean, the whole concept was like this whole like they come upon like this village and like these people who seem like picturesque, like everything is great. You're in Europe, there's tulips everywhere, everyone seems like relatively happy, but there's like this unsettling feeling, especially as you like learn more about like the community dynamics, like and how they treat like their elderly, or essentially like if you get too old, like they kind of just drop you off like a rock and they smash your head in if you don't die. And it's like kind of like jarring in the sense where it's like you're seeing like all these kind of like things where you're not expecting, like almost like jump scares, but not exactly, because I do think like they hit on like deeper chords. So I am definitely interested in seeing like what he's going to be doing with it. I know that he is pulling from at least like from the trailer and what is being shown, or what was actually shown as like the summary, is that it is going to be located in a furniture store. It's called Captain Clark's Ottoman Empire. And they do have like a little like infomercial, like with an actual phone number and like a pirate standing on like an ottoman, and essentially it focuses like on, so Dr. Mary Klein, so she is a therapist who kind of goes into this otherworldly dimension in search of her missing patient Clark, who is played by Chidowell Ejiofor. I hope I'm saying that correctly.
Oh boy.
Chitao Ejiofor.
I need to edit that in post. Let me actually. Maybe I should look that up on Google.
No, Editor Dolan will figure it out. Editor Dolan is sweating though, because Editor Dolan is trying to figure out how to get all these movie clips we've talked about onto this without getting the video completely struck down. So
demonetized.
It's more
demonetized.
no, we're not monetized. You think we're monetized? We're not monetized. I'm just trying to get from getting kicked off the platform.
I don't know if you'll have a problem with that, because I know a lot of people are talking about this right now, and I know like you don't have to show a lot of clips. It's just kind of like the general sense of it, you know, not really.
Yeah.
Like you don't have to show like the whole movie trailer. But I'm kind of like curious essentially like what they're actually going to show. If like they're going to include a lot of like the components of the anthology, because like a lot of the anthology was like you were saying, like there really was just a lot of build up, but there wasn't necessarily a payoff in the sense where you like got concrete answers as to what things were. You kind of got like a glimpse as to what things could be, or like what was theorized or found out, as far as like, you know, the bacteria monsters that were chasing like the people within the clips, or even just kind of what happened to the workers themselves. There is some like time bending attributes to that as well, to where like one of them actually did kind of time travel and like basically like clipped into another period of time, and like he was like, oh, it's been like a couple, you know, of hours for me, but it's been like months for like, you know, the rest of the world. So I'm really wondering like how they're going to incorporate, if they are going to incorporate like any of those elements into the film, considering that it doesn't seem like they're, at least from like the synopsis I read, that they're really having like a large cast as a part of this. So I'm wondering if he's going to really go back to like the roots of what he was showing as far as like the company that he built that was like investigating the backrooms, or if this is just kind of be this own like separate, I guess, part of the anthology, where you have to kind of refer to the anthology to even have a background, and then this would just kind of build off on it.
Mildly related, but a mild tangent, but I gotta ask. So you've talked a lot about, and I think quite fully explained, like why this has had a cultural impact, why it's gotten to where it is. But I want to ask, like, what about it, like, grabs you? This was something that you, funnily enough, you came and said, I want to talk about this. And I'm really curious, not just like, I totally get why it's as big as it is. You have made a really good case for it so far, and I know there's more. So I'm not in doubt on that, but I'm curious what motivates you personally that's like, I gotta talk about this. This hits me in a way different than like other horror films. A24, like you said, has been making, you know, kind of niche horror films since 2012. And you've mentioned them offhand and stuff like that, but you've never been like, we need to talk about this, you know. And so this means something different to you, and I'd love to hear what in particular grabs you versus other types of even niche horror that they're doing.
So I think for me, growing up, like, so I don't play a lot of video games. I'm sure you guys know that, but I do watch a lot of video game playthroughs. So I think for me, kind of like growing up, you know, in that like YA dystopian era of like reading kind of did instill in me like an appreciation for horror, like in either very subtle ways or more evident ways. So I've always been more drawn to like that kind of concept as far as like video games or even just like psychological horror and like films. So for me, the Backroom kind of also combines a really nice sci-fi aspect, and like this whole concept of like alternate reality that I, again, just kind of me being in science, like I've learned about like throughout college, like in wormholes and like the Bermuda Triangle and those kinds of things that I was interested in. It kind of like ties all those like interests in really nicely for me, in a concept that also like basically the sky's the limit, like you like in the way that you've seen also just within the community where people are constantly making up new levels, constantly making up new rules. Like there's really no like end, I guess, to the amount of creativity you can have in the concept, where in other things like, yeah, the world building is like it can only go so far, but in this it does feel more of like an open concept, and it really does incorporate a lot of like my interests, again, like with horror, with the kind of like eeriness that you were talking about, also that kind of calmingness where it's kind of not exact, like it does cause like you to kind of be like, oh, I'm uncomfortable in this like spot, but at the same time too causes you to think and be like, okay, like what would I do if this really happened to me? And I think for me that really kind of connects, as opposed to like other horror, like I said, which I feel like the world building is not as open. the characters are already pretty well defined as what they can and cannot do, or where you'll find them or where you won't find them. But in this, it's not, and I just really appreciate that.
Nice. Oh, thank you for answering that. Sorry, I know that was off script, but I was just curious.
No, that's good. And then kind of going into this, so again, like talking about not just like the impact of like the Backrooms movie itself, but also just kind of the fact that we're seeing just a lot more video game adaptations as far as like movies. So did you guys like watch the Mario movie? Like,
Yes.
I know we're bringing other stuff, but did you like the Mario movie?
I mean, it's fine. Now the Sonic movie is dope, and I will stand on that. The Sonic movie is great, but yeah, no, we've been doing video game adaptations for a while, but I feel like they've been getting largely higher quality than they used to be. I feel like, I don't know that we're getting more of them. Maybe we are. I'm not good at, like, I don't know about the numbers, but I definitely know there's more that I'm like, oh, that was a movie. And maybe that's a low bar, but I kind of feel like that was the bar for a while, was like, is this even a movie? As someone who loves the Mila Jovovich Resident Evil films, those aren't movies. I quite enjoy them, but they're not real movies. Those are, you know, what they are. I haven't seen some of the recent stuff you mentioned, like some of the other stuff, Mortal Kombat and Iron Lung. I haven't seen those, but yeah, the kid-friendly stuff, because I have. It's so hard to watch films that are not child appropriate when you've got a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old in the house, I will say. But all the child appropriate ones I've been watching more of lately, yeah.
That's why you just do what my mom did with me. You just take them in and you like cover their ears when like there's a part, but you let them soak in all the visual, all the visual aspects of. You deal with the consequences
Here's a
later.
question: what is worse, having no audio but having to see the visuals, or having only audio and no visuals?
I'd rather see it. I'd rather see it and
Yeah.
not hear it. I think if I was hearing it, I think I'd be like very concerned.
Yeah.
Yeah, my parents' tactic was shield the eyes, not the ears, which I remembered the most vividly when I got to see Star Wars Episode 3 with my dad in the theater, and right at the end. Oh no, it's right at the end where Anakin's getting burned alive in the lava. My dad's like, no, you can't watch this. Turn around. So I'm just hearing Anakin scream his heart out and like fire sounds. And I'm just trying to imagine what is happening to this guy. I can only imagine.
Oh my gosh.
I just know I think it's a lifelong canon parent experience to be like, this is fine, and then you're reminded that it's not fine, and you go, oh.
This is totally not fine. I think it's also like being desensitized too as like an adult, because you're like, oh, like as an adult, I think like going off your thing, you're like, oh, this like doesn't affect me.
Yeah,
but then,
no.
Like in their perspective, it's like, oh, yeah.
Yes, no, like I'm not upset when I see the fake little wax head that NCIS has for their things. It does not bother me. But my 3-year-old son, we don't let him watch that. So it's like, nope, not doing that. I'm sorry.
Christian, we haven't really heard. It's okay. We haven't really heard from you. What's your take on like a lot of this stuff?
It's all news to me. I mean, how so?
You know about Slender Man and
Again,
like the 8 pages and stuff, right?
Yeah, like I know about Slender Man like from a distance, when it was happening. Like that's basically the only experience I've had with this genre at all. So there's a lot that I don't know, and you're filling in a lot of cracks of like what any of this even is. So I do have a question. Is it like for the games in this genre, is it just walking around these spaces and like there's nothing there for like the entirety of however long the game is? Or like I know you said a bacteria monster for one of them, so some of them have stuff following you and some of them don't? Or like, what is the gameplay?
So that is beyond my expertise. I think Austin probably has more exposure to what the games actually look like than I do. I was not expecting that question.
So I'll do my best. I like watching people play games too, quite frequently. So I've seen a channel play through multiple backroom games, and majority of them, they're just kind of like a 4-player co-op thing of just kind of running through different like puzzle maps. So they always start with the classic picture, like the yellow office rooms, which is usually the simplest one. It's just kind of find the exit. There is some entity like the bacteria monster roaming around that's trying to hunt you down and kill you. And then as you go to the different levels, like the whole scenery changes, the different entities changes, the different kind of mechanics of what you're supposed to do to avoid being instantly killed changes, or the key items that you have to try to hunt it for, or if there's like traps around the area, stuff like that. It's just kind of a co-op party game with a horror element is typically how I've seen the backroom games being played. Okay. I don't feel like the games embody exactly what the original feel of the Backrooms was intended to, but they still look pretty fun. They kind of branch off in the gameplay similar to the SCP Foundation in my mind, which is what I kind of know a little bit more of. It's the same vein as like the Backrooms. It's a community-driven creepypasta-ish type of thing. It's what they're all about. Entities that some super secret organization are trying to contain. But it's kind of similar to that when you get into the gameplay realm. There's also SCP games.
Okay.
So Jay, what's your overlap between the Backrooms and SCP, and why is SCP inferior?
SCP.
Oh man.
I'm glad I wasn't the only one that was going to ask that.
Oh man, we're possibly going to give her a new fixation over this. I cannot believe.
Oh, I think you will like SCP.
Yeah, a lot of the things you described as why you like the Backrooms also apply to SCP.
Yeah, SCP stands for Secure, Contain, Protect. And their whole thing is like people come up with these different kind of like entities that exist, and they kind of define like what their difficulty level is to contain them, and how they are monitored or secured and experimented on by this like super secret government foundation.
Well, and they range the stories. They're all community-driven creepypastas, and they range from here's a boogeyman monster that wants to eat you to like very conceptual, like, I don't know, isn't one of the most famous ones just a staircase that no one can get to the bottom of or something like that?
Yeah, there's that. There's one of the more popular and one of my favorite ones that I find the most funny is the Infinite IKEA. That one's pretty fun. You get trapped in an IKEA store, and then there's like a civilization that lives in there that's also trapped, and the little mannequins hunt you down.
We were talking about video games, which is ostensibly what this podcast is about. Do you know the game Control, Jay? Like, have you heard of it? No? Okay. I've heard Control is very SCP adjacent. It's actually on our list to one day get through. It's part of the Remedyverse games, guys, so we'll probably go through it at some point. But, yeah, I don't know.
Foreshadowing
for probably 7 years from now, knowing how we work. But, oh man. But yeah, no, I think you should look into SCP sometime. I know that's off topic from this, but it has a lot of the same concepts, except for it's less focused on kind of a space and more on an anomaly or a creature, how it operates, and what steps can be taken to try and mitigate it. It's very eldritch in nature. They don't do a lot to like beat these things. They just try and stop them from destroying humanity today. A lot of the times, right?
Okay, so like the payoff is not long term, it's very short term. Like it's objective based then, essentially.
Yeah, but it's still built on like the kind of small snippets of information or small stories that are all like added together by the community to a larger continuity, just like the Backrooms is. They're built the exact same way, just two different topics.
Right, yeah. No. Very accurate.
Sorry, I like I said, watch very little video games, but I do watch a lot of gameplays. But a lot of it's like older, not this kind of gameplays.
I think SCP's been around even longer than the Backrooms. That's fascinating to me that you have this level of like investment but don't know about SCP. Not a bad thing. I find the internet's such a quirky little place of, you know, different niches.
Yeah, according to Google, it's around 2007. Also on 4chan.
Wow. So it probably was like one of the bigger also contributing factors to like liminal spaces too then, like the whole concept as well. But that's what we're focusing on today.
Nice. I just wanted to know about your you know, opinion on the crossover, but instead I gave you homework, so there's that.
It's true, I have to have a part 2. Just like
I want you to
Jay's
come
brain
back.
on.
I want you to come back with like a freaking like the red board, like it's you know, it's always sunny, and be like, okay, now we can talk about SCP and how it relates to the back.
It's all connected. Yeah, this will be like our second part 2.
We could come back and do an SCP. That could be fun.
That would be fun. I can learn all this stuff, and then I can be like, what is that? And tell me more about it. But we digress. So kind of going back to like what you were talking about, like video game movies. So there definitely has been, I think, a big shift, and I think a lot of it has been the fact that we've gone into more long form content. So in the same where like movies are no longer an hour and a half, they're like 2.5 hours or 3, and we have series like, you know, The Last of Us, which is not necessarily like you have to condense so much information, you know, and so much lore within like, you know, even that 2.5, 3 hours. You can extend it out over a couple of episodes that are, you know, 1 to 2 hours long. So I think that has like really kind of built more of an investment in a lot of like these concepts as far as like video game adaptations. And I think it's also, you've seen a lot more improvement as far as like consumer response as well, because a lot of these fans that, you know, like of Sonic, you know, or of Mario are not having to worry about like things being taken out, and they're not able to enjoy, you know, the certain aspects that maybe they like about the game not being, you know, shown in the films. So that's why like this thing with the Backrooms, again, like I said, it's a lot more open-ended, because there really kind of was no like official lore to begin with. It was kind of built on like what Kane Parsons had done, and again what a lot of like the community online had done, but there was no like official like framework. So I'm really interested in to see what they're going to do with this, as opposed to maybe like Iron Lung, where that did have an official framework. It had a game, it had its lore. This really was more of something that was built off an idea rather than, you know, an actual like full built concept.
So what are your hopes with what they do with it? What's like, oh yeah, this would be great, and what's like, no, you've ruined it?
I think for me, I just hope they don't go with like the whole like at the end the government like kidnaps the guy and like then we never find out like anything kind of like vibe, where it's like they're like being chased, and then at the end they like meet like some guy in like a hazmat suit, and he's like, oh yeah, like we'll tell you everything in the future, and then cut to black, and essentially like you have to wait
that is
for, like,
exactly how it's going to end, and you know it.
I don't, probably.
That's how every Resident Evil game has ended for the past 10 years, and I yell at Austin about it every time.
It's just like, this is how we get you coming back for more. It's just like, you know, showing like the limited amount of like as little as possible about the storyline. But I really do hope like they kind of go, I'm really curious about like the bacteria monsters. I really do want to learn more about them, because they did cover them a little bit in his anthology, kind of like talking about their origin, that it's like this very kind of aggressive form of like E. coli. But it was like only briefly touched on, and then we kind of just saw glimpses like here and there within the anthology, and then they kind of went into like the time warp and like the kind of psychological stress that a lot of people were going through, the disappearances that were happening where people were kind of clipping into this room and they were not being found, and kind of all that. So I'm hoping that they provide a more cohesive narrative as to exactly like what is in the Backrooms, or if like these bacteria monsters like are basically humans that have transformed into these things, or if they, you know, where did they come from. So I'm more like interested kind of like in that concept, and I really do hope they go into that. And then as well as like with the time travel, I'm sure what's gonna happen is like the guy, they both no clip into the back rooms, and like they're there for like a couple hours, and then they come out and it's like 6-7 years later, and they're like, we all thought you were dead, and it's like, no, we were having, you know, this horrible time in this other place. And then it goes into, yeah, cut to black, like the government's like, stop, you can't be talking about these kinds of things.
Dun dun dun.
And yeah, dun dun, yeah.
The Backrooms will return in the Avengers Doomsday.
Exactly. Exactly. We get like Robert Downey Jr. is the
man.
secret agent, and then
That would be the funniest possible. If a guy in a hazmat suit has to show up, at least make it Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, he just like dramatically removes it, like his cap, and you're like, what is that? And it's just like the back of his head. It's not even his face. Like, that's how you know.
It's Robert Downey Jr.'s brother that they got to play him.
Did you have something to say, Christian?
I have a question that I didn't ask at the beginning because I felt like I already didn't know too much. And you've said this term a few times.
Oh no.
Could you, just for those listening, could you define no clipping?
Oh no!
For anyone that's listening that doesn't know what that means.
So essentially, it's like.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I'm
out
going to
reality.
answer this real quick. Christian,
Okay, go ahead.
do you remember Halo Reach and there was the invisible wall we could walk through for no reason and die? Imagine if instead of dying, you fell into an office. You just clip through the world. No clip is no clip is the term when you turn off collision on a thing so that you can just fall through stuff.
Oh.
Remember Halo Reach when we just fell through that wall and there was a kill plane?
Yes.
There. Imagine if instead of a kill plane you fell into a beta map.
So how do you get out?
That's the horror.
You don't. You don't really know.
You don't, or maybe.
Yeah, and like they're like you would see that especially like in the first anthology, or even like on the subsequent ones, but that was kind of a little bit different. Like the first one, you basically no clip back into reality, or rather like this monster ate this kid, or what it seemed like he ate this kid, and then his video camera no clip back into reality. But it was not in like the place that he had been taken out of reality from. It was like in this suburban area, and the camera landed in like the backyard of like a house. So it really is kind of goes into like the idea, and like I said, kind of expanding like later on in the clips is like this kind of concept of like alternate reality. So like there's this guy who like comes upon this house, and like, you know, there's food like on the table. He can hear like this other guy like on like in the background, and like he starts asking him like, hey, like, where am I? Can you help me get out of here? Like, I've been kind of roaming around this place for like hours. And this guy's like, who are you? Like, where are you? And he's like, I'm right here in front of you. Or like, I don't really know, man. Like, and then that guy essentially, I guess like there's different portals, and that's like another thing I'm hoping that they'll also go into the movie is like the whole concept of like maybe these portals, because then we hear this guy getting attacked by something, and essentially like this guy never gets out of the backrooms. From what it seems like he dies there. So it doesn't really seem like there's like a definitive like way of going in and out of reality. It just seems like there's like these kind of like warps that'll like kind of suck you in, and then potentially there's a way to get out, but we don't really know.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes. No, I have 30 pages of notes, guys, by the way.
Wow.
My 30 pages of notes on the Backrooms.
Man, you're serious about this.
I do like the whole concept. I do like it a lot. I'm really excited for this movie, and I don't get excited a lot of things. Like, for like Avatar, like I really like the whole like James Cameron thing. I know it's not like super popular, or like the subsequent movies are not as good because it's basically like a retelling of the same story over and over again. But I like the world building.
Yeah,
and, like,
you vibe
I'll
with
usually
it.
get into something. Yeah, I vibe with the world building. So like I vibe with open worlds. Again, I don't like I'm fine with like concepts that are more condensed. Like, yeah, there's like, you know, there's walls that you reach at some point, but like if there's no ceiling and you can constantly keep up making new material, that's just really, really interesting for me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then we talked about a little about liminal spaces. We talked about kind of like the content that's arisen from it, and kind of like the interest that we kind of see. So a lot of the times from what I was reading, at least what other people were kind of expressing about like how they feel about liminal spaces, it's essentially like this kind of feeling of like a deja vu, where it's like they feel like they've been there before, but they can't really identify like the exact location, and so it kind of creates this like feeling of unease. But at the same time too, there's like a kind of niceness within that solitude, right? Especially like if you've had like a really long day, so like you'll see a lot of liminal spaces kind of incorporated into like those videos where they're like, oh, you know, pick your bedroom, and it's like these picturesque things, there's like nobody there, but essentially it's like just different like scenarios in which you can find yourself. And I feel like a lot of people engage with that because like, yes, it's a liminal space, and yes, you would expect a lot of people to be in these areas that they're showing within these clips or these AI generated clips, but at the same time too, that like feeling of being able to get away from everyone, I think also just kind of has like an appeal when you're looking at like the other side of liminal spaces, aside from like the uneasy fear kind of factor there. So, segueing into that, now we're going to talk about thalassophobia. Do you guys know what thalassophobia is?
I'm gonna assume it's fear of empty spaces?
This is not fear of
Darn.
empty spaces.
Took a swing.
Austin, do you know what thalassophobia is?
No idea.
No, Christian?
It's the lassophobia,
Yeah, thalassophobia.
the fear of being last.
It's kind of. I mean, it indirectly ties into that, I think.
What?
Like, well, I mean, like, and I do mean, like, loosely, like, ties into that.
I'll take
so-
whatever I can get.
Okay. We can put, like, you can put, like, a little point thing down, and you can put, like, half a point,
Yes.
like, for Christian.
Give me a point, editor.
Here we go again.
I'm gonna let you guess what Editor Stalin's response to that is.
Be like, no. Be like, just show a meme where it's...
You know what Editor Dolan's going to do? Because I think he's this petty.
What?
He's not going to keep track of your dumb points, but he's going to take a picture of you and add, like, celebration and say #1 winner or something like that. And it'll be way more work than if he had just put a point on, but he's going to probably be that petty. That sounds like what he would do. Editor Dolan is snarky.
Added all in is fun. This is what makes it fun. Okay, so I'm honestly like super looking forward to how this is gonna turn out. Like, I'm very excited.
It's gonna be a minute because I think I'm 5 podcasts behind on editing that I need to get out, so we'll get it.
Wow.
Don't worry, it's okay.
So, well, this podcast will be out when they have, what is it, The Backrooms 2. When that sequel comes out.
When's
this
the
will
movie
be,
come out? It'll be out before then.
Yeah, the 24th. So. like, in
Wow,
2
of
weeks.
this month?
Yeah. Yeah.
Get to work.
Editor
Maybe-
Dolan is on the grindstone.
Maybe prioritize this one because it's like I feel
We'll take
like
a break
it'll
from
probably get more
999. We'll
viewership.
take a break. I mean, 999-2's already done, so we'll do it between 999 and... It's fine. Everything's fine. Don't worry about it. It's great.
But it'll get traction though because it is a pretty relevant topic.
You
and-
think people watch us? You think that the quality is related to what we do? The most bull crap we put 0 effort into it one ever is our most watched video by like a factor of 4. It is literally a podcast of me on the tutorial on Pal World and then us just going, Pokemon's boring, we quit. And that is by a order of magnitude our most watched video. So
Maybe we'll just go from the beginning of this and then just like at the end we'll just take it out. Like that's the Backrooms, everybody.
See, we'll break the algorithm because we have a guest girl on the podcast. So
that is
True.
true. We should
That's
rename it to
true.
the Game Girl Podcast for one episode. This would be funny.
It's just like appeal to all the Discord kittens, like, and they're the mods.
No. I am too old.
That's not the crowd we want to
I am
appeal
too
to.
old. I have children. I would like to not be in jail. Oh,
Anyways,
man.
let's see. I'm excited. Anyways. Okay. back on topics. This doesn't go out longer. We're almost done, by the way. We're on
Hey-o.
basically the last point, like
Yeah.
part D, and then we just have closing, and then we're done. Right. So thalassophobia, going back to that, is an intense, persistent fear of deep bodies of water, so oceans, seas, or large lakes.
Okay.
So it is like being the last one, like in the environment for sure. Essentially, like fear of the unknown lurking beneath, the surface. It can cause panic attacks in people, anxiety. People avoid deep water. It's just the vastness and the darkness and the lack of visibility that is unappealing, which goes into liminal spaces. Because I feel like they both evoke that kind of anxiety and that fear of the unknown, where you're really kind of like in the in-between period, like where you're not really sure what's coming at you, like in the water, in the same way in liminal spaces, you're not really sure what's going to happen next. And it does kind of have like that uncanny feeling to it. But the reason I brought this up specifically is because I do feel like within the Backrooms, there is an area called the Pool Rooms, and essentially it's known as Room 37, or Level 37 of the Backrooms, and it is basically like pools, so it's like infinite and connected tiled rooms, hallways submerged in lukewarm water, and like pristine white ceramic tiles, essentially like the kind of the same concepts, but I feel like a lot of people, from what I've seen in content, have kind of like mashed these two things together. So they'll put like massive like creatures like looking at you as you're going through these rooms with their heads turning, or like even as you go underwater. Like, I don't know if you've seen those clips where like this person's like a diver and they're like swimming between like these like stone columns of people, and like as they're looking, like these columns are kind of following them, and then suddenly something will emerge like from the bottom. So I really do feel like that kind of has combined together recently, and I do also feel like that kind of shows itself a little bit up in Subnautica. So have you heard of Subnautica?
I know Subnautica.
I've heard of that.
Okay, finally we can put 2 points. 2 points. So for those who don't know what Subnautica is a 2018 first-person perspective survival action game set in an open world. You basically play as a lone survivor across the spaceship in the Aurora, so known as Riley Robinson, as he's stranded on a remote ocean planet known as 454-6b. Essentially, the main objective is to explore the ocean and survive dangers while completing tasks to advance the plot. And there are different difficulty levels as far as how you can play Subnautica, as well as the developmental patches with the Leviathans that are the main threat basically within Subnautica. But I do feel like this is a perfect example of kind of how these two concepts have come together, and how again the fandom has reacted so positively to it, again because it does leverage a lot of that isolation, that limited visibility. There's the voids, the drop-offs, right? So you travel over massive drop-offs when the seabed disappears, leaving them in a seemingly bottomless, empty, dark abyss. There's, like I said, the lack of control. So, they're out of their natural environment, they're relying on machines, they're getting these warnings, you're not really sure, what's around you, or, how close it is. But at the same time, too, you're kind of in this, serene, or, you can say, eerie, serene, environment of, this water. So, what did you guys think of Subnautica when you played it? Or, did you feel like these concepts came through, or, what was your takeaway on it?
Austin.
Has any of us actually played it?
Yeah.
That's the question. I know what Subnautica is. I've seen some people play through some of it. I have never played the game. I don't know if I ever will. Gameplay-wise, I'm not really a big fan of water in games or
Thalassophobia.
It's not from fear. I just find being underwater boring. But
what?
That's just me. I mean, the concept of the ocean and the exploration of the ocean, especially our actual oceans, is very fascinating to me, but not in a video game setting for whatever reason. I'm more interested in the horrors or the deep explorations of our own ocean over a simulated one. But that doesn't translate the same to any exploration in any other category. I just find video game oceans boring. But I'm a weird guy, so we'll leave it at that.
You've picked an odd bunch, I'll tell you that, because I'm even weirder in particular. I can clinically understand, and if a giant Leviathan was about to eat me, I would be as scared of that as the next guy, right? or big. I've swam even in a lake, and the lake is like, ooh, you can see down about, 9 feet, and then it's just black. And I know there's not a giant eel about to eat me, but something in the back of the lizard brain isn't quite positive about that, if I'm being honest. So I can understand that fear, but I don't find it especially gripping or really stronger than any other, like a basic fear of heights if I'm on something kind of up tall and not very secure. They're very fleeting fears. I'm an odd duck when it comes to like fears that stick. I tend to find like my nightmares are I've woken up and found out that my entire high school class is laughing at me because my wife has left me. Like, those are the kind of reoccurring nightmares I have. They're very mundane, socially based. And then the scariest thing I have ever encountered in media is the Unman from Paralandra by C.S. Lewis, which is just a man possessed by a demon. So I all that to say, I tend to find threats of physical violence fairly mundane to myself, different with the kids and stuff like that. But even it's like it is scary. I'm like, oh, that's scary, but it doesn't quite hit me in the same way it might another. Christian, you want to bring us home on the deep waters of fear?
I have not played Subnautica.
Yeah, but you know. What about big scary things in the deep water? How is that?
I have never encountered a shark.
That has nothing to do.
Me neither.
I'm just setting the stage. I do understand the fear of being eaten by a shark.
Brother.
I could understand that. I mean, I think that, again, I haven't played like Subnautica, or I can't really think of any game that I've played in water that had like horror elements to it, but I could definitely see that being nerving. I feel like jump scares tend to get me. Like, if I don't see something and then I see it, like, just I can't see a shark coming at me and then I see a shark, I will be struck with fear. So,
yeah.
That's all I got.
So like Subnautica really doesn't rely necessarily on jump scares. It's more of like a slow burn, like just ever-present dread, essentially.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's like something could pop up at any moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like as you're going through the game, essentially you're like you never know if you're surrounded. Like there's some areas you do know for sure are like where like leviathans hide out. But for the most part, it is very much just kind of like a constant sense of dread where you never really know like, if I do capture this, is this going to work out? Is this going to end up, like, breaking out of its cage, essentially, and then, eating me alive, like, in the game? But I think, like, it kind of combines, like I said, a lot of, like, the liminal spaces that we're seeing, again, just within media, within games, and then as well as, like, incorporating this whole concept, again, of, like, thalassophobia, which I think really relates really nicely to liminal spacing, because, again, it is kind of this unexpected, kind of in-between space where you're not really sure what's going to come at you. Like you said, a shark, you're not really sure like if a shark's out there, because you can't see a shark from that way, but you definitely know it can see you, or like smell you. At least it can't see you, but it can smell you. And it's kind of like that same like concept, I think, just kind of through media in general right now, like with the backrooms and liminal spacing, and like I said, with thalassophobia, like these kind of playing on these fears of the unknown, and like people like to be in that in-between space. They're drawn into that. I think it also just kind of goes into that like fight or flight sensation where you kind of feel a little bit more alive than you kind of normally would, a lot more relaxed. So again, maybe it's just adrenaline junkies like me, but I think that it's like a nice like tie-in.
I do think that would be fear-inducing for me personally. Like, I feel like my hands are sweating a little bit thinking about it. But I do not think that I'm the type of person that would play that in my spare time.
You played Resident Evil against your will.
I know, but like the difference is Resident Evil, at least up to the point that we've played so far, I can do something if something comes at me. I have a weapon, or I have something that I can do to counteract the zombie, versus if there is a shark, as far as I know, Subnautica, you don't have a weapon or anything, so it's like, you're gonna get eaten, you know?
So, this is interesting. It's, again, a mild tangent. This is something we've talked about a lot in another place where I'm a little bit weird and different, I feel like. I find the moment you take away options in a video game, I'm bored. So if it is just, oh, this thing's coming at you and you can run or you can run, I'm like, checked out. I found Amnesia anti-scary. I don't know if you know about Amnesia, but that's kind of also around the same time Slender Man's coming out. It's a very indie horror game. It kind of cemented the, like, hide-in-the-closet horror is what I call it. Which is very different than what the Backrooms is, to be clear. But we're talking about, can you confront the threat or not? In real life, I'm sure not being able to confront a threat is much scarier. But in a video game, it just turns my brain into, because I'm stuck. I'm if I've got options, I'm engaging with the problem and how I want to solve it. And then if the game is like, your option is run, my brain is like, okay. I don't know, something about it gamifies the situation to a point that it breaks, I guess, my immersion. So, yeah.
So you do have weapons. They're non-violent. So Subnautica does focus a lot on non-violence. Essentially, like, that's kind of what the developers wanted. They just kind of wanted a lot more of, like, intense, immersive horror experience rather than, like, a shooter experience. Yeah. So you do have, like, weapons. Yeah. So, like, you have a stasis rifle, which does freeze threats. You do have, like, repulsion cannons, which push away threats. And, like, but it's not, like, in the traditional, like, I have a gun and then boom, 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 like, thing is dead and now move on to the next thing. It is very much kind of, like, I guess skill-based, like, I guess how good you are at maneuvering these weapons, or, like, learning how to maneuver them, because if you don't, then, yeah, you're dead, essentially.
So how does that tie in, again, to kind of, what is the fundamental difference between the way Subnautica handles its enemies and the bacteria enemies? Or is there a fundamental difference? Are they pretty much the same?
Pretty much the same.
Okay.
So, like, from what was shown, like, in the anthology, there really is no, like, way to stop them.
Yeah.
They just kind of, like, they have guns, like, and they do carry around guns, but there really is no, like, confrontation, at least from what we saw in the anthology, directly between, like, the workers for, like, this government agency and, like, these bacteria monsters. It really is just kind of, like, an awareness of their existence, but we never really see any direct, like, conflict between them.
Interesting. Okay.
Another plot point for the movie to bring up.
Yeah.
Maybe.
I don't know. I'm interested to see how they handle this, because a guy wandering around the hallway for an hour and a half is going to be a tough sell for a general audience, right? So...
I agree. I think it is a lot more focused, like, because a lot of the times in the anthologies, like, a lot of these people who were, again, in these, like, no-clipped into these rooms didn't have any weapons.
Yeah.
They literally were, like, chased by these entities and essentially had to get away, like, either by hiding or just by being fast enough to get away from them, or if they didn't, then they were eaten, from what we understand. But I also think it does bring in a lot into, like, that time travel aspect where, like, the Backrooms is kind of, like, an outside part of reality. So, like, where there is, like, a difference between the amount of time that you spend in there, potentially, and then the difference, you know, kind of on the outside world. So I think it is going to focus more a lot on, like, those kinds of aspects, as well as, like, again, escaping these monsters and, like, trying not to die at the same time trying to get out, if there is a way to get out. You know, I think it's kind of more on that. Right, so this was our little TED talk on the Backrooms.
Yeah.
Essentially. So yeah, I think it does just kind of emphasize again how fear is just not often, created through direct, violence or confrontation, but sometimes really just kind of is through that emptiness or uncertainty, or maybe just the suggestion that reality is not as stable as it appears to be.
I do find it absolutely fascinating to watch these kind of niche types of horror and subculture. A horror, they often say, as it becomes bigger, reflects kind of modern concerns. Modern being what is of the time, not necessarily what is of the now, right? And you see like the zombie, the zombie pin coming up when we're dealing with certain fears about, various things. That's so vague, but I mean, like, when you look at the horror of each age, it's reflecting concerns of that cultural age, is the point I'm trying to make. And so I guess it makes me wonder, in this very this very isolated age, I find it interesting that this very isolating form of horror is coming so far into prominence, and what that says about, where we are as a culture. So, thanks for talking to us about that. It's a lot to chew on, and I am definitely interested also to hear what you have to say about the SCP as well, and how that interacts with the Backrooms, because I feel like we've accidentally just unboxed Pandora's box, and there's like a whole rabbit hole you're about to fall down and then come back and report to us, to be honest.
That's true. That's what we need a part 2.
Yeah,
we need a part 2.
I think we could definitely do that. Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on. Thank you for being on our silly podcast and just talking to us about this and educating on this, because you've clearly got a passion for this, and it really shows. And even though Austin and I knew, Christian learned a whole lot, and Austin and I knew some, but I feel like we definitely learned a lot more about this like specific topic. It's so neat to just see that passion come through. So thank you again for coming on.
Thank you for having me, and definitely I will look into
the
all the video games we talked about. Yes, essentially. Maybe I'll become a real gamer girl at this point. We'll see.
All right, well, yeah, thanks again for coming on. This is Austin signing off. Christian?
See you guys later.
Donald?
See ya!
And Jay?
Catch you next time.
Woohoo! We did it!
Thanks again for watching, everyone. Have a good one.
Check out our Instagram. Yeah. One of these buttons closes it down.